Next morning, after council incident, Naruto was stood in his kitchen making breakfast for himself whilst also giving some of the soup a taste test as he slowly recalled graduating from the academy and chuckled softly when he looked to the picture of his mother and smiles at it before saying, "I did it, Kaa-chan." His eyes had teardrops forming in the corners as he smiled more. "I became a shinobi with some help from Kurama." He stopped talking as his food finished cooking, offered a prayer before starting to eat his food with a soft smile. He looked at the clock and chuckles, what to do until team assignments. He asked more to himself, not expecting an answer when the deep voice of Kurama answered. "You could train, practice cooking, do more fuinjutsu, or even spend time looking for a girlfriend to end up giving your mother grandchildren like she always wanted." The voice may have come from a serious beast, but Naruto could hear the underlying mirth and exasperation at the last idea. Naruto chuckled and shook his head slightly at his tenant and the ideas. "No one in Konoha interests me, Kurama," Naruto said out loud. "They're also all too stuck on the idea of me being a demon and related to the ghost of the Uchiha." Naruto grumbled as he heard Kurama bellow with laughter before sighing, "I'll practice fuinjutsu until I can finally become a level 10 seal master. After all, we only have 1 or 2 levels left, and with my eidetic memory I should master them easily," Naruto said, chuckling a little as he finished his breakfast and went to brush his teeth. After brushing his teeth, he walked to the library of his house and looked for the last 2 books for fuinjutsu. Once finding them, he started to study them with a smile on his face. 1 week later, Naruto woke up and did his daily rituals, consisting of a run along the village walls, then returning home to shower, make breakfast, and finally finishing with brushing his teeth. Over the past week he spent time mastering to his standard all the seals of level 9 sealing and started the level 10 sealing book, which is where he found out about the Uzumaki sealing levels, which went beyond the Konoha levels, but he would study them some other time because right now he was walking to the academy with his book in his hand, making sure to weave his way through the crowd and not even bumping into anyone, reminding them of Kakashi Hatake without the mask. As soon as Naruto reached the academy, he walked to his classroom and then to his seat and sat down with a sigh as he awaited his classmates. As he continued to read, he was also starting to get small ideas for some other seals he could make and then running the ideas by Kurama. After all, having the opinion of someone who has lived for 1,000 years does seem ideal. While he was thinking of an idea, he soon realized how close it seemed to the Hiraishin that the Nidaime Hokage invented and his father went and improved. He slowly sighed as he looked up, seeing people starting to walk into the classroom, and Naruto then went back to reading. He would wait before starting to train in the Hiraishin. After all, the only thing he has to base the seal off of is his father's kunao, which had hundreds if not thousands of smaller seals inside of the kanji his father used on the kunao's handle. After about 20 minutes of Naruto reading, he put his sealing book away in a seal he had hidden on his wrist as he rubbed his shoulder softly where the seal for his mother's eyes were, and Naruto smiled softly until realization hit him. "Kaa-chan left her eyes for me because she knew I'd unlock the Mangekyou and she already had it unlocked," he thought before looking at his hands, and his smile brightened as he vowed to make his mother proud of himself throughout his career. While this was happening, Iruka was going on about a speech of how proud he was of the class that went on until a student asked where Mizuki-sensei was. Iruka froze, and replied, "Mizuki-sensei was deemed a threat to the village and also a traitor when Umbu captured him last night when he was attempting to escape with the scroll of seals." Iruka shocked the class with his statement as Naruto now realized why there were so many Umbu out in the village last night, and a sigh escaped Iruka before he continued, "Anyways, Team 1 will be Desh." Naruto zoned out, not really caring about the teams other than his own. He seemed to start listening as Iruka got to the bottom of the list, and Iruka continued, "Team 7 will be Naruto Uchiha, Sasuke Uchiha, and finally Sakura Haruno under the tutelage of Kakashi Hatake." Naruto froze before groaning and listened to the last of the teams. Team 8 is Kiba and Yazuka, Shino Abarame and Hinata Hyuga under the tutelage of Kurane Ui. Team 9 is still in rotation, so Team 10 is Koji Akimichi, Shikamaru Nara and Ino Yamanaka under the tutelage of Asuma Sarutobi. As Iruka finished team assignments he looked up, "You have lunch and then should be back for your senseis to pick you up." As soon as Iruka finished everyone left for lunch while Naruto sat there inside before unsealing a bento box and started to eat with his chopsticks in one hand and his book on seals in the other. After Naruto finished eating he shunshined to the roof of the academy where he saw the senseis already there making him smile softly. "Asuma. How is Kano Amaru?" Naruto asked as he had met the youngest of the Sarutobi family while getting his shinobi license photo taken. Naruto and Kano Amaru had become friends quickly, even going as far as Naruto seeing Kano Amaru as a younger brother and Naruto being like Kano Amaru's older brother. Naruto's voice made all the sensei look to him as Asuma smiled even with the signature cigarette in his mouth. "He's great Naruto, though he is shouting about beating his rival someday," Asuma said casually, surprising the other sensei that they had met before as Asuma grinned softly. "Though I do have to thank you for telling us all the secret and getting rid of the civilian council," Asuma said, causing Naruto to grin widely as he remembered seeing Asuma in the Sarutobi head seat and chuckled. "I completely forgot you were in the meeting," Naruto said sheepishly as he rubbed his neck before turning to the side. "I hope you didn't share it with anyone or Konoha will find out who the stronger wind user is, you know." Naruto grinned as Asuma raised his hands defensively and shook his head, making Naruto chuckle and sit down as he looked to Kurane. "You must be the one Kano Amaru went on about when he said that Uncle Asuma had a beautiful girlfriend," Naruto said with a grin as Asuma almost choked on his cigarette and Kurane looked away with a small blush before she got control of her facial expression. "No, me and Asuma-san aren't dating dash." Kurane would have continued had Naruto not burst out laughing, causing all of them to look at him as if he was crazy before he calmed down and looked up, wiping a tear from his eye and smiling. "I can sense emotions, you know," he said with a fox-like grin, surprising the jonin on the roof as he smirked more. "Which is how I knew all of you would be up here and also that Kakashi is down in the tree in the courtyard," Naruto said, surprising them further as Naruto looked to where Kakashi is and waved slightly. Not even 5 seconds later the silver-haired jonin arrived on the roof grumbling about blonde brats being censors as Naruto chuckled, "Nice to finally meet you, Kakashi. Or should I call you dash?" Naruto was cut off as Kakashi's hands covered his mouth. "You know, revealing an Umbu's identity even if they are ex-Umbu is pretty severe," he said as Naruto just chuckled and looked innocent as he removed the hand from his mouth. "But I was going to say Sharingan no Kakashi, not what mask you wore, even though it is pretty obvious," Naruto grumbled the last part as he then looked to Asuma and sighed. "Was Sandaime-sama serious about what he said at the end of the council meeting?" Naruto asked and Asuma looked at him before sighing and putting his cigarette out. "Yeah, Pops was pretty serious about that. Especially considering what the secret was to and the others as well," Asuma said seriously before looking at him. "And the mummy has been put in the newest edition of the bingo book and Pops found a lot of evidence towards what you were telling us about, and considering what he did was treason, he has a high bounty. And a kill on sight order with as a S-rank criminal," Asuma said again, surprising all of them that a fresh out of the academy genin found evidence on Danzo. They all clicked as to who it was from the nickname Mummy. After all, how many people in Konoha have enough bandages to be considered a mummy other than Danzo, the senseis of the teams, and Naruto? Spoke until lunch was over and Naruto went back to his classroom and fell asleep as he knew of Kakashi's late tendencies. While he was asleep, all the other teams and their senseis slowly left until it was only Team 7 left. After what felt like 3 hours to Naruto's internal clock, he woke up and looked at the door with a small smirk as if on cue. Sakura looked at him and said, "Finally the dobe is awake, but why are you smirking like that?" "I'll correct myself, she didn't say that," she screeched it, making Naruto cover his ears as he looked at her for less than a second and looked away. "Kakashi-sensei is here," Naruto said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world, making the two other occupants look confused as the door opened and in walked the topic of their discussion, Kakashi Hatake, who looked at the three and simply said, "Meet me on the roof," and disappeared in a swirl of leaves. leaving a stunned Sasuke and Sakura and a laughing Naruto who stood up and waved at them before he himself disappeared, making the two snaps out of their stunned states and run towards the roof. Meanwhile on the roof Kakashi looked up as Naruto appeared. "I should have known you'd be the first here, Naruto," he said with a nice smile as Naruto chuckled and sat down on the stairs, pulling out his notebook as he practiced drawing and writing the seals from the level 10 sealing book. This continued for a couple more minutes until Sasuke and Sakura arrived on the roof, both of them panting, Sakura panting more than Sasuke though, which made Naruto shake his head at how the female of Team 7 obviously never trained, as he sealed his book away and turned to Kakashi, who closed his book and smiled at the team under his mask before saying, "Alright, introduce yourself, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, dreams and aspirations," he said as he pointed to Sakura. "Pinky, go first." Sakura looked confused, so Kakashi sighed and gave an example. "My name is Kakashi Hatake. My likes are none of your business, same with my dislikes. As for my hobbies, none of you are old enough to know, and I don't really have any dreams for the future," he said and looked at her again. "Now go." Sakura nodded and said, "My name is Sakura Harano. My likes are," she looks at Sasuke and giggles and then looks away, "I mean the person I like is," she giggled and blushed, "my dream is." She giggled a little more perversely and stopped when Kakashi asked about her dislikes, where she furrowed her brow and said, "Ino Buta and Naruto Baka." She growled as Naruto made a wounded look and spoke. "Oh no, the great Sakura Harano hates me. Whatever shall I do?" he asked sarcastically, getting a chuckle from Kakashi, a glare from Sakura and a grunt from Sasuke. "Alright, next is Mr. Emo King," he said, pointing at Sasuke, making him growl before he grunted and spoke. "My name is Sasuke Uchiha. I don't like anything, and my dislikes are everything," Sasuke said before looking at his hands and saying, "My dream is to kill someone and avenge my clan." He growled out, making Sakura squeal as Naruto and Kakashi shook their heads, and Kakashi said, "And last but not least, the Fuinjutsu lover," Kakashi said as he looked at Naruto, surprising his other teammates that he could do Fuinjutsu. "My name is Naruto Uchiha. My likes are my precious people and my friends such as Shika and Koji. My dislikes are people who don't understand the basics of Fuinjutsu, and my dream is to make my family proud of me, from Shisui Nii and Kaa-chan," he said as he looked over to the Hokage monument. "By becoming the first ever Uchiha Hokage and making some changes to the village within the rules and restrictions I will still have," he said with a smile while keeping his gaze on Minato's head, surprising Kakashi that he knew who his father is before Kakashi regained himself and smiled before nodding. "Anyways, we have a test tomorrow, which will be a survival test against me. Meet at training ground 7 at 7 a.m, Kakashi said as he went to leave before adding in afterthought, "Oh, and I advise you don't eat, as you will just throw it all up again." With that he disappeared and left the three genin as Naruto stood. "I suggest you go at 9:50 a.m. and not 7 a.m. and eat, as you'd just be dead weight if you don't," he said as he then disappeared, leaving his teammates by themselves as they were about to retort before he left. Sasuke left soon after with his fangirl following, asking for a date. Next morning, Naruto sat at his table after brushing his teeth after his morning rituals and smirks at the journal he was currently reading and chuckles softly. Who would have thought Kakashi-sensei was a part of Tio-Yu-san's team when he was a Jonin sensei? Naruto closed the book, and on the front, it was labeled Minato Namikaze's journal. After putting it down, Naruto stretched slight as he yawns and stands up, seeing it was 9:30 am. He started to walk towards the door, thinking of ways to get his apparent teammates to work with him for the bell test. Whilst lost in thought, he slowly walked onto training ground 7, only to cringe when he heard a banshee screaming at him and looks up to see Sakura. "Yes, Sakura-san, he asked, trying to be polite. "Why are you late, Baka?" she screamed as Naruto covered his ears and looks at Sasuke before he sighed. "Because unlike you and Mr. Broods a lot over there, I was doing research on our sensei and utilizing the time to have breakfast so I would have enough energy to fight the strongest shinobi in the village other than Matogai and Sandaime-sama," Naruto replies whilst walking off and sighs. "I also know of his habits after he lost a teammate in the last war," Naruto said before stopping and looking into a tree and saying, "Isn't that right, Kakashi-sensei?" Naruto shocked his teammates and they thought he was crazy until they heard Kakashi's lazy and drawn-out chuckle as he appeared in a cloud of smoke. "Of course, you are. I should have expected that you would research me after I found out who you were taught by throughout your childhood." Kakashi smirked under his mask and looked at Naruto before he sighs. "I bet you even know about the test I'm about to give you, huh?" Kakashi asked, his voice betraying his stern look as Naruto chuckles softly. "Of course I do. After all, it's a test given to all of the Team 7s of past, such as Naruto-sama giving it to Sandaime-sama. Sandaime-sama used the same test on the Densetsu no Sunin. Jiraiya-sama gave it to the Yondaime-sama, and then finally Yondaime-sama gave it to your team consisting of Uchiha Obito, Nohara-rin and Hatake Kakashi, with Hatake Kakashi being the only surviving member of that team," Naruto said before saying again, "Although you are the last remaining member, you have the legacy of both teammates and attitude from Obito apparently, and continued to see the better side of people from Rin," Naruto said before continuing, "Oh, and don't forget that Obito gave you his eye as a present whilst he was dying in the war. It's the way you gained the nickname Sharingan no Kakashi, and then according to the bingo book learned over 1000 jutsu and have the ability to use all 5 nature releases, though it does drain your chakra, which is the reason you haven't been classified in S-rank shinobi." Naruto finished as if talking about the weather surprising his team, even his Jonin sensei. "So, it seems someone has done some homework and also hid how smart they were during the academy, huh?" Kakashi asked him as Naruto smirked and nodded softly, getting stunned looks from Sasuke and Sakura. "Of course, otherwise I'd be treated like Mr. Broody, and I don't wanna be like him. I'd rather be like Shisui Nii, not Fugaku," Naruto said, making Sasuke growl as Kakashi decided to start the test before they started to fight. "Alright, the premise of the test is to get these bells," Kakashi said, holding up 2 bells, and then continued before Sakura could speak. "And the one who doesn't get one will be sent back to the academy no matter how good they do. Oh, and come at me with the intent to kill or you won't even touch the bells," he said as he steeled his voice, "and go." As soon as he said go, Sasuke and Sakura vanished while Naruto chuckled and looks at Kakashi. "You know they won't work with me even if it was the end of the world, right?" Naruto asked as Kakashi sighed and nodded. Naruto sat down and leaned against the log. "And yes, I know who my Ryu-san is," Naruto grinned as he closed his eyes. "After all, it is kind of obvious that he and Kaa-chan were together if what I read in his journal was anything to go by," Naruto chuckled softly before cracking his eye open. "And Sasuke is planning on throwing a jutsu this way," Naruto said, surprising Kakashi at how good his sensory abilities were to know when someone was readying a jutsu before they even started the hand signs. "How do you know?" Kakashi asked as Naruto looked to him. "I can sense him molding the chakra in his lungs to make a Gukyaku no jutsu," Naruto replied as he stood up and smirked to Kakashi. "Oh, and thanks for the bells," Naruto said as he disappeared into a poof of smoke, showing he was a shadow clone and the real Naruto wasn't there. Neither were the bells, making Kakashi curse as he just realized the real Naruto had shunshined away after collecting the bells. After cursing, he dodged the fireball that Sasuke sent at him and then called the test over, confusing Sasuke as he then looked to where the bells were and realized they weren't there at all, making him confused. "Naruto got the bells whilst I was talking to a clone," Kakashi muttered, still stunned by the fact his student was able to make a shadow clone without any hand signs. After a minute, the entirety of Team 7 were in the clearing as Kakashi looked to Naruto, who was holding the bells, which were actually 2 stones he used a genjutsu on, and Kakashi said, "Naruto-kin, I have the bells back." Naruto looked at him before nodding. Only if I can have my stones back from your pouch. Naruto said as Kakashi pulled the stones out and they made the trade, and Naruto smirked as he dropped the genjutsu, only to smirk more at the stunned faces of his teammates. Oh, it worked perfectly, Naruto exclaimed while laughing. What did you do? Sasuke growled as Naruto kept laughing and laughed harder at the elite Uchiha when he asked this. Oh, I placed all of you in a genjutsu when we entered the training ground, so subtle you all thought that my chakra was your own. Then I picked up 2 stones by the riverbed which would act American Samoa, the bells I got from Kakashi, while also touching the bells Kakashi had to make them look like stones in his pouch. Of course I had to make a clone to keep him distracted, so I did it while you and Sakura kept him distracted when you two ran into the forest. After all, he had his senses spread to sense both of you, Naruto explained, surprising both Sakura and Sasuke. Then Naruto smirked and continued. After I had everything set up, my clone acted as the final trigger when he dispelled. He activated the final layer of the genjutsu to make all of you believe I beat the test. Naruto looked to Kakashi, and you never sensed it because you never looked careful enough. Naruto finished before throwing the bells to Sasuke and Sakura. Anyways, I don't wanna be on this team with people whose only redeeming trait is having fangirls and acing all the academy exams. As he went to leave, Kakashi snapped out of his shock and said, You all passed. That made Sasuke smirk and Sakura cheer, or more like screech, as Naruto sighed and kept leaving. After he left, Kakashi went to report on the passing of the team. As soon as he entered, he stunned all the Jonin that he was on time, which got him questioning glances from them all of the Jonin as Hiruzen cleared his throat, getting their attention. We'll start with Team 1's report, then work our way down, Hiruzen said as the senseis nodded. Team 1 fail, Aoba said. Team 2 fail, Gekko Hayate said before coughing hard. Team 3 pass, Hamaki Mimura said. Team 4 fail, Genma Shiranui said before moving his senbon to the other side of his mouth. Team 5 pass, Ensui Nara said with a hidden yawn. Team 6 pass, Rado Namayashi said. Team 7 pass, Kakashi said, surprising everyone but Asuma and the Hokage. Team 8 pass, Kurane said. Team 10 pass, Asuma finished up for the Jonins. Hiruzen looked to Kakashi and said, I'd like a verbal report on the test you gave, Kakashi. Hiruzen said as Kakashi said and explained the events of the whole test and then the ending, then how much planning Naruto had put into the test, and finally Naruto handing the bells over to his teammates, leaving out how Naruto said he didn't want to be on the team. Like before, all the Jonin were surprised, none more so than Kurane, who was titled the Genjutsu Mistress. You're saying Uchiha Naruto, the dead last of the academy and Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, used a small enough chakra to fool you? Kurane asked incredulously as Kakashi nodded, and then Kakashi looked to the Sandaime. Hokage-sama, could it be possible that Naruto has the Sharingan unlocked? Kakashi asked, surprising the other Jonins, as the only other Uchihas to have a Sharingan and be that proficient enough with it at that age were only 3: Uchiha Madara, Uchiha Shisui, and Uchiha Itachi. 2 of which ended up going rouge whilst the other was killed by Itachi/N. Shisui still died the same way through jumping off the cliff after giving his Sharingan to Itachi. The Hokage looked thoughtful before sighing and dismissing the Jonins, not even answering the question as not even he himself knew. After the meeting with Naruto, Naruto sneezed as he walked into his house before looking around. I guess I could clean before doing some training, he whispered to himself as he saw a small amount of dust on a picture hanging on the wall next to the door. Surprise, Naruto is a clean freak, which Shisui said he got from Hikari. Anyways, back to the story. Naruto started to clean the house until he heard a knock on the door. He walked up and opened the door before sighing, Hello Sandaime-sama, I thought Kakashi-sensei needed to give you my team's results. Naruto questioned, and Hiruzen spoke up. Kakashi already did, and he told us of your plan to beat him in the test. The only idea we could come to was that you have your Sharingan awakened already. Hiruzen said, making Naruto steal his facial features and sigh as he opened the door more and motioned for Hiruzen to enter. Once Hiruzen entered, Naruto closed the door and sat opposite Hiruzen and spoke. "You may be an old monkey but you're smart, Sandaime-sama," Naruto said as he closed his eyes and activated his 3-tomo Sharingan before opening his eyes. "Yes, I've got a fully matured Sharingan. I got it fully matured before I joined the academy, in fact, and unlocked it at 5 years old. The same night I came into contact with the Kyuubi and my Ryu-san," Naruto finished, surprising Hiruzen. "He met the Kyuubi. Oh, and me and the Kyuubi are very good friends. Which may surprise you, but he was also good friends with my to-be godmother when he was sealed in her," Naruto said before he growled. "Though some bastard claiming to be Madara attacked her and released the Kyuubi using his Sharingan to control it to his will to attack Konoha," Naruto finished, surprising Hiruzen further. "That's all I needed to know, thank you, Naruto," Hiruzen said as he stood up and left. Naruto continued to clean before he sighed and sat down. "I'm all worked up, I have to go blow off steam," he muttered as he walked into the training field him and Shisui used as he started to train using jutsus from all natures. Even almost using Yatun release, which made him stop and look around confused. He thought before running home and looking through books until he found his father's journal and looked for a page about the Namikaze clan until he found it. They had the natural ability to combine elemental releases to make sub-elements as long as they have the original element, which he had apparently inherited, which made him smile as he inherited something else from his father's clan other than the Fuinjutsu abilities and mastery.